Hi everybody. Today's lesson's on Lamarck's theory of evolution. You see, Jean-Baptiste Lamarck proposed a theory of evolution about 50 years before Charles Darwin proposed his theories of evolution. However, in Lamarck's theory of evolution, he had a few key things that were wrong. He got a lot of stuff right, as did Darwin, but a few things were incorrect, which is why we study Darwin's theories of evolution and not Lamarck's theories of evolution. Like Charles Darwin, Lamarck realized that organisms were well suited to their environment. And like Darwin, he realized that characteristics, at least some characteristics, were passed on from parents to offspring. He was just wrong about what type of characteristics were inherited. You see, Lamarck thought that inherited characteristics could be traits that you acquired later on in life. Right? So, for example, if you spend a lot of time at the gym and you're working out and you get really strong in these big muscles, you'll pass that strength and those large muscles on to your children so that your children can be stronger. All right? So that's what he thought by the inheritance of acquired traits. Traits that you weren't born with, but traits that you acquired later on in life. So, if we take a look at this giraffe over here, right, we see that one of the characteristics of giraffes is that they all have this very long neck. All right? So, Darwin, with his theory of natural selection, right, he would explain this long neck by saying that you had giraffes with shorter necks and you had giraffes with longer necks. All of the giraffes with shorter necks were unable to survive and reproduce and therefore died off. It was only the ones with longer necks that could survive because they could reach leaves higher up in the trees. And therefore they reproduced and passed that trait on to the next generation. Alright? So the whole next generation of giraffes is going to have this longer neck. Okay? Lamarck would explain this differently. Alright? He would say that giraffes were constantly stretching out their necks, trying to reach the leaves high up in the tree. Right? And after a lifetime of trying to reach up and stretch out your neck gets a little bit longer. Right? And you pass that on to the next generation of giraffes. And the next generation does the same thing. They're constantly stretching out their necks, trying to reach leaves that are higher and higher up in the trees. And again, they pass that stretched out trait on to the next generation. So, that was Lamarck's first wrong idea, this inheritance of acquired traits. The second thing that Lamarck got wrong was this idea of use and disuse. Right? He thought that if you used a certain body part more and more, it would get bigger and more prominent. Right? Likewise, he thought if you didn't use or need a certain body part, it would get smaller and smaller until it disappeared. So here we have a small fish that naturally lives in Africa, right? These two fish that we see kind of in the background, right? They live, in the normal lake. However, these lakes have these underwater caves, and if you go in these underwater caves, you see a very similar fish, except that it lacks eyes, right? And Lamarck would explain that these cave fish over here lack eyes because it's pitch black in this cave, and therefore the eyes weren't needed. So generation after generation, since the fish wasn't using the eyes, they became smaller and smaller and smaller until they eventually disappeared completely. Alright guys, so that's Lamarck's theory of evolution. Thanks for listening. Bye.